Hi guys, in this section I would like to share you about hypertension. So let me clarify you one thing before start the section. There is a difference between hypertension and BP. So hypertension is raised BP, whereas BP is the pressure exerted on the walls of the arteries for the movement of the blood. Listen, BP is the pressure exerted on the walls of the arteries for the normal movement of the blood. We all require BP, otherwise we can't survive. Listen, that is the required thing of the body, whereas hypertension is excited BP, as high pressure on the arteries, which are vessels that carry the blood from the heart to rest of the body. Listen, hypertension is high pressure on the walls of the artery, where a damage of arteries will be happens soon. So while coming to the BP, it is a combination of cardiac output and peripheral resistance. The cardiac output is nothing but the blood come out from the heart per a minute by the contractions of the ventricles. So it is the feeding capacity of the heart, so which is generally based on the blood volume or peripheral resistance or cardiac functioning ability. Based on that, the cardiac output may changes, whereas peripheral resistance is the resistance of the blood vessels to relax more. While you imagine the heart as like a motor and blood vessel as like tube, whenever the motor is function are supposed to be send water in a forcible manner, there must be some contractions and relaxation happen towards the tube. Otherwise, the tube get damaged or the fluid cannot be travel towards the tube, isn't it? So while you observe a motor and a tube, obviously the tubes which are connected towards the motors will be rubber tubes, so which has the elasticity. The elasticity requirement for that tube is for maintaining the pressure exerted on the walls of the tubes. So if it is resistant, then obviously the flow pattern will be disturbed, or otherwise the walls of the tube get damaged. So peripheral resistance is resistance created by the walls of the arteries. Clear? So blood pressure is a combination of the cardiac output, the output of the heart, into the peripheral resistance, the resistance created by the walls of the arteries. While if you are going to measure the cardiac output, whatever peripheral resistance and cardiac output combination, then we can measure the blood pressure. If we are going to measure the blood pressure, we are going to take two readings. So that is nothing but systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. So while the top number is termed as systolic blood pressure, which is going to measure the pressure on the arteries while heart contracts, while diastolic blood pressure is the pressure on the arteries while heart relax. So I show you once again. So this what, for example this what our arteries is. So this is the lumen. So the inner part will be the lumen and outer will be the walls of the artery. When some force is acting on this, the blood vessels lumen will be enhanced. This what we term as systolic. When ventricles are contracted, the blood is pushed towards the arteries. Because of the high pressure created, the blood vessels get extending itself, isn't it? So there is an extension happens in the blood vessel. So that what we term as systolic condition. Well, whenever the relaxation of the ventricles happen, because of the negative pressure created, again the lumen size will be decreased. This what we term as diastolic condition. This what the diastolic condition is. This what the systolic condition is. Here the lumen size will be enhanced. In case of systolic, the lumen size will be enhanced. In case of diastolic, the lumen size will be decreased. That what the difference between systolic and diastolic. This is the required element to maintain the flow of the blood, isn't it? So in case of blood pressure, we are going to take two readings, that what, systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So this was the normal chart given by WHO. While normal blood pressure for on and average, we can't suppose to say everyone has to take 120. So there may be 110 in someone's case, there may be 100 too. So systolic will be the contraction given by the contractions of the ventricles, diastolic will be given by the relaxation of the ventricles. Get it? So for a normal human being, the systolic pressure will be less than 120 and diastolic pressure will be less than 80. Well, if any person is undergo some stress conditions or any of the physical exercise is done, obviously some changes is happen in the blood pressure because of the energy requirement of the cells. So this is what we term as elevated conditions. So when any of the alteration is happened because of the high energy requirement of the body, there is elevation of the blood pressure. So that what from 120 to 130 it is, but the diastolic will be maintained at 80. So that what we term as elevated condition. This will be happen because of the alteration in the physiological conditions. So if it is goes to 140 range, then that what we term as earlier hypertension, nothing but a stage 1 hypertension. So in the case of stage 1 hypertension, the BP will be from 130 to 140 in case of systolic and 80 to 90 in case of diastolic. If it is worsened, then they undergo stage 2, where the person having at least 140 or more than 140 as systolic and more than 90 as diastolic. If a crisis condition, a very worse condition is there, that what we term as hypertensive crisis, where the systolic is over than 180 and diastolic will be over than 120. So this was the normal chart of hypertension. While coming to hypertension, so till now we are talking what is hypertension, what might be happen in hypertension, but we are not stressing what meant by hypertension. While coming to the hypertension, it is high pressure in the arteries, which are the vessels that carries the blood from the heart to rest of the body. Maybe that is our lungs too. Clear? It is a pressure exerted on the walls of the arteries, the blood vessels which carries the blood from heart to rest of the body. So while this was the case, so if you pressurize or increases the volume or increases the peripheral resistance, that may causes high pressure. You can observe that clearly in this case. So here the resistance will be enhanced. So because of the increased resistance, there is a fluid stockage is happening. Because of that reason, there is a damage on the walls of the tube is happens. So this case will be termed as high pressure. So while coming to the types of hypertension, basically we have two types: primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. If any physiological changes is going to lead the hypertension, that what we term as essential hypertension or primary hypertension. We may not know the reasons for essential hypertension because it is normal occurrence happen because of the physiological changes. Clear it is. If my body will be the reason for any of the hypertension, then that what we term as primary hypertension. If any disease is going to cause hypertension, then that what we term as secondary hypertension. So the causes of hypertension will be genetics, high salt intake, hormonal changes, sclerosis or other diseases. While coming to the genetics, so it not says that if your father having hypertension, you get the hypertension. It is run by family like diabetes. What is the thing happens is, if my family have a low lumen capacity, if peripheral resistance is more in my family runs, then obviously I may get a prompt chance to get a hypertension. While high salt intake is there, then obviously renal tubular reabsorption will be more. So sodium is only carrier for reabsorption, the max carrier for reabsorption of the renal tubules, isn't it? So if I take more sodium level, obviously the reabsorption will be more, and that increases the blood volume, which causes hypertension. The hormonal changes, we can say the best case like adrenal glands. So while in case of release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, like fight or flight mode. So for example, if I am feeling any of the tense condition, obviously my cells required more energy because it is going to do more work, isn't it? So whenever the work done is more, obviously the energy requirement is also get raised. So once the energy requirement is raised, obviously there is more energy has to be sent towards the blood cells, isn't it? So then there is high need of blood towards the cells. So that's what the case happens. So while high energy requirement is there, obviously my cardiac output will be raised and my peripheral resistance is also get raised. Why? Because if energy requirement is there, obviously it has to be reached to the site very quickly. So for that means the peripheral resistance and the cardiac output get raised. And if that condition is still prolonged, then that is progressively causes hypertension. In case of sclerosis, nothing but the stiffness of arteries or any of the blockage of the arteries because of the fat materials, then obviously there is a raised BP to clear out that stiffness or clear out that plaques, or otherwise to meet the resistance, the pressure of the heart will be raised. So obviously the hypertension gets raised. So that's what happens in case of sclerosis condition. And in case of other diseases condition like renal failures or diabetes mellitus, so if you consider diabetes mellitus, obviously the viscosity of the blood will be high. So once the viscosity of blood will be high, obviously there is high pressure requirement to send the high viscous blood through the blood vessels, isn't it? So once the pressure requirement is more, obviously the cardiac output will be more, obviously the BP get raised. So in case of renal failure, there is high blood volume is there in our body. Once the volume is enhanced, obviously we have a rise of BP condition in our body. That what the causes of hypertension. While coming to the pathogenesis, I just want to mention every pathogenesis related to the hypertension because we don't have a clear cause for hypertension. Because of that reason, I just want to explain every possible condition here. So the first thing will be genetical or environmental factor. So if I have excess of sympathetic function or higher activation of renin-angiotensin system or otherwise any of the ureal hormones is there or inflammatory conditions is there or insulin resistance is there, once if my insulin resistance is there, that is going to cause vasoconstriction to send the blood very fastly towards the cells, and once the vasoconstriction is done, that increases the peripheral resistance and which in turn causes hypertension. If any inflammatory conditions or any of the sympathetic or parasympathetic system failures is there, then obviously that is going to increases the reabsorption of salts and waters in kidney. Once the renal reabsorption will be more, then obviously the blood volume get raised, that is also causes hypertension. This was the normal pathogenesis pathway for hypertension. Once any alteration is there towards the insulin levels or towards the sympathetic discharge, and that is going to causes peripheral resistance followed by increase of blood volume, that in turn causes hypertension. While coming to the sympathetic system specifically, so while the adrenaline levels or noradrenaline levels get raised, that is acting on alpha and beta receptors. Once that is act on alpha and beta receptors, so basically the alpha receptors present on the blood vessels which causes vasoconstriction, and beta receptors are present on heart and renal which causes increase of heart rate and increase of blood volume, that increases the blood pressure and causes hypertension. If you explain this in a other manner, whenever the sympathetic discharge is more, obviously the cell function gets raised, isn't it? Sympathetic discharge is nothing but fight or flight mode. So once my fight or flight mode gets raised, obviously I have to function more to meet the requirement. So once I have to function more, then obviously I require more energy to function like that, hasn't it? So when I need more energy, then I require more whatever blood supply or cardiac output to meet the energy requirements of mine. So that what happens in this case. Once the requirement of energy is more, obviously the peripheral resistance get raised and the heart rate get raised to meet the energy requirements. That what happens in case of sympathetic alteration. So activation of alpha 1 and beta 1 receptors. So next one is renin angiotensin aldosterone system. While coming to this system, so generally we have kidneys that is going to do the process of filtration, isn't it? So we have glomerulus is there where we have the filtration process, our perforation process is there. So whenever the juxtaglomerular apparatus having less blood supply, and obviously what the kidney thought in our body is there might be decrease of blood volume or decrease of blood in our body. Because of that reason the blood reach towards me is decreased. That what the thought of kidney is. Once kidney thought like that, that is going to enhance the volume of the blood by means of releasing of renin. Once renin get released, that reach towards the liver and converts the angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. So it is traveling the systemic circulation and reach to the lungs where it is converted as angiotensin 2 by means of angiotensin converting enzyme. Once this is done, this is acting on several systems like tubular reabsorption, sympathetic activity, vascular construction, or aldosterone release. So these all are the special activities done by angiotensin 2, and that is going to enhance water and salt retention in the body. Furtherly, it raises the blood volume. So once this is properly done, the kidney has to stop this process of release of renin, isn't it? This was a normal process happened in our body to maintain the blood pressure by means of kidneys. So if any of disturbances happen, if I have more renin release, so that going to cause more release of angiotensin 2. So then that finally causes rise of blood pressure. So when any of the disturbance in the renin angiotensin aldosterone system, that is also leads to the hypertension in case of patients. So next one is renal failures. So I already discussed this in previous slide. That is impaired renal function or any of the inapproximate activation of hormones or excessive activation of sympathetic system going to cause impairment of the renal, and that is going to cause the hypertension. So while coming to the signs and symptoms, so we have a chest pain, palpitation, headache, dizziness, shortness of breath. So this was some sort unclear. Let me go by this means. So we have a tiny arteries towards our brain and towards our optical system. So when we have a rise of blood pressure, obviously the tiny arterioles is get damaged. Because of the damage of that tiny arterioles, we have headaches, dizziness. Towards our brain, we have headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or some of the bleeding inside brain. Some strokes will be happens. And while coming to the optical system, we have blurred vision, and we have nauseatic condition towards our brain, and we have enlargement of the heart because of the excessive cardiac output. We have enlargement of the heart and blockage of the arteries, and there is a damage in our kidneys, isn't it? So the problem is happening in our chest. No, there is a high workload in our heart, isn't it? So because of that reason, we have chest pain and palpitation, and we can observe the pulsations in the case of arteries which are presented out just near or beneath the skin, that is at the neck region and the head region. We can observe the pulsations. That might be signs and symptoms for hypertension. While coming to the diagnosis, we can examine patient history. Remember one thing, if I observe any patient case, any patient with elevated BP condition, I can't conclude them as hypertensive patients. Get it? So the elevated BP will be happens in any person with several regions, like genetical factors is there, some stress conditions is there, or any of the environmental conditions is there. I can't suppose to conclude that if a elevated blood pressure is there, the person will be subjected with hypertension. So if I want to conclude the patient with hypertension, so I need to observe the patient for about 3 months. If the condition will be stayed in the body of the patient for 3 months, then I may conclude that patient is subjected with hypertension. Until and unless I never allow the patient to told them as a hypertensive condition. So we can identify any of the damages in our heart or lung system by chest x-rays. The best example of identifying the hypertension is sphygmomanometer. So by that means we can easily identify the BP. Rather than using these all techniques, we go with sphygmomanometer. While coming to the treatment, we go with regular exercises, stress reduction, diuretics, beta blockers. So not this way here, we go with this way. So the alpha 2 agonist is going to decrease the sympathetic activity. By that means it causes vasodilation. Our beta 1 and alpha 1 blockers. So the beta 1 blockers are decreases the cardiac output, and by that means it decreases the cardiac output. By that means it is controlling the BP, or otherwise alpha 1 receptors. So it inhibits the sympathetic activity and controls the vasoconstriction. By that means vasodilation happens. Or otherwise calcium channel blockers, we all know the calcium channel. Calcium is responsible for constriction, while if you block the calcium channels, obviously that causes dilation. So other system which is involved in the hypertension is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. If I use diuretics, then I control the release of renin. So if I can't control it, I can control the conversion of angiotensin 1 and as angiotensin 2 by using ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, or otherwise I may block the attack of angiotensin 2 on the receptor side. So by that means I can control the hypertension conditions. Thank you.